Let's focus on the next verse and another verse. The Chaf. Kavod malchuscha yemeru. That's the next verse on page 32. They will declare the glory of your kingdom. Ugvurascha yedaberu. And tell of your strength. Okay, interesting. So Hashem creates the world through the attribute of royalty. Although it says Hashem creates the world with his 10 sfirot, with his 10 divine emanations, everything in the world, these are the ingredients, everything in the world contains these ingredients: Hashem's wisdom, Hashem's understanding, Hashem's knowledge, Hashem's kindness, his compassion, his strength, his compassion, his mercy. Everything in this world contains is an expression, so much so that everything in the world reflects that. Water reflects Hashem's kindness, fire reflects Hashem's strength. Every aspect of this world contains and expresses another dimension of Hashem's, so to speak, personality and character, of Hashem's 10 sfirot. But nevertheless, creation itself comes from the attribute of royalty. On the other hand, we say that we refer to this world as Hashem's handiwork. And like we discussed in the last class, when you say handiwork, action, a person is not reflected in his action. The artist is reflected in his work of art, his personality, his character, his life. He expresses it in his art. When you do action, I don't know anything about the person who just did this action. It doesn't reveal anything. You threw a ball. Could you tell me something about the personality and the character of the one who threw the ball? I have no clue. What do I know? He plays a good game of baseball. That's all I know. Do I know anything about the person and the act of hitting the ball? It's not revealing. It's completely concealing. So when you say that we are the handiwork of Hashem, because Hashem is completely concealed, it's something from nothing. Most people go through their entire life and they don't even know that God even exists. While God is creating you at this very moment, at this instant, completely clueless. It's nothing. To them, it's nothing. I am something. What I see is something. What I taste and touch and smell, this is something. Hashem, I don't know what that is. It's nothing, something from nothing. Royalty, however, why did Hashem have to create the world of royalty? Because if Hashem would create the world directly from his attributes, his kindness, his love, his compassion, the world as we know it would not be possible. Because kindness, compassion represents a closeness. Even being strict with someone is also an expression of closeness, right? I'm only tough on someone that I care about. Someone that I don't care about, I just ignore. I'm not going to waste my energy. I'm only angry at someone that I love, that I care about. You know, a couple, when they're angry at each other, there's hope. When they become indifferent to each other, they don't even get angry at each other, then it's over, it's game over. When there's closeness, there's emotions. Emotions means you're emotional to someone you're close with. I love, I hate, I like, I don't like, I distance, I drew near. So all of Hashem's emotions represents a closeness. So if Hashem created the world with his emotions, meaning that we would be close to Hashem, meaning we would feel Hashem. If we would feel Hashem, we couldn't exist. There would be no ego. There would be no I. All we would sense is our closeness to Hashem. Hashem wanted a world. So therefore, he created the world with the attribute of royalty. Because royalty, by definition, is you can't be a king over yourself, even over your close family. You can only be a king over subjects. There is a distance between the king and his subjects. The king, by definition, is remote. He lives in the palace. He's above. He's head and shoulders above his subjects. He projects himself. The king, his name is projected over his kingdom. They listen to him. Even in the far-flung corners of the kingdom, they've never seen the king. But his name, the king, and they wake up every morning pledging allegiance to the king. It's the projection of the king, but the king himself is remote. The king is royal. He's adorned in his royalty, and he's awesome. And to see the king in his regality, and his crown, and his throne, and his palace. The king, by definition, is remote, but the king is not totally disconnected from his kingdom. At the end of the day, he leads his kingdom. He governs his kingdom. Not only is he king, he's the king. Everything that happens in his kingdom goes through the king. He makes sure that provide for his subjects. He makes sure they have what they need. He protects them. He makes sure they have enough to earn a living, to prosper. So there is a connection. But because of that distance, that's why we're able to exist. Hashem wanted subjects. He wanted us to be His subjects. But we should be independent entities. But Hashem should be remote. Hashem should be transcendent, should be beyond us. But on the other hand, He could have also created us just something from nothing, without the attribute of royalty. That we should just be Hashem's handiwork, like you throw a ball. But Hashem didn't create the world that way. He created the world. That's what we're saying in this verse. They will declare the glory of your kingdom. Hashem created the whole world through His attribute of kingdom, through His attribute of royalty. Because what was the whole purpose of creation? What did Hashem desire? What does He want? He wants us, yes, to be independent, to be self-sufficient, egotistical. We should have our own identity. But He wants us to have a relationship with Him. He wants us that we should deliberately choose and consciously choose and want to be Hashem's subject. We should subject ourselves to Hashem and want to have a relationship with Hashem. Just like the king and his subjects. Yes, the king is remote and the king is transcendent and regal and royal, but the king has a relationship with his subject. He's not a mystery to us. He's not totally beyond his subjects. So that's why Hashem did not create the world directly through His attributes. It's only the way His attributes are communicated and conveyed through the attribute of royalty, like Hashem's speech. Hashem created the world with speech. When you speak, in your words, you convey what you're thinking, what you're feeling, your mind, your heart. So all of your personality, all of your character, all of your attributes are revealed through your speech. Speech is to someone else. You don't need speech for yourself. So by definition, there's someone outside of me, and I'm conveying and I'm communicating what's going on inside of me to someone outside of me. But there's a connection. I'm conveying, communicating what's going on inside of me to someone else. That's what Hashem wanted. There should be a subject, an independent entity that feels separate and apart from Hashem, but someone that Hashem is speaking to. There's a relationship, there's an interaction, there's a connection. A subject that wants to subject himself to Hashem. There's a king and subject. If Hashem would have created the world just something from nothing, without the attribute of royalty, without Hashem's kingdom, then Hashem would be completely hidden. Hashem would be completely concealed. We wouldn't even know of Hashem. Like you throw the ball, I have no idea who is throwing the ball. I don't know anything about the one who's throwing the ball. It's completely hidden and concealed. That's not what Hashem wanted. Hashem wanted, yes, Hashem should be beyond us, but we should have a relationship. That's the attribute of kingdom. That's what we say. That they will declare the glory of your kingdom. Because this is the connector. This is what creates the relationship. The connection that we have with Hashem, this fulfills the whole purpose of creation. That we are independent, we have egos, and yet we are declaring Hashem's kingdom. We are entering into this relationship. And then He says, and tell of your strength. Because in order to reveal the attribute of royalty, of kingdom, which is also associated with speech. The king rules through his speech. He gives a command, he gives an order, and things happen. He gives an order, and armies are marching, and armies are moving, and people are dying, and people are... the king just speaks. He doesn't lift a finger, he just speaks, and things happen. That's the power of the king, of speech. So we find that in order to speak, you must have the attribute of gevura, the attribute of tzimtzum. We see in our own personal experience, when your emotions are overwhelming, when you're in a state of frenzy, or you're in a state of overwhelming love or overwhelming anger, you can't even speak, you can't say a word. You're so overwhelmed by your emotion that you can't communicate. The emotion is too intense. I can't lower myself, I can't bring myself to speak. In order to speak, first you have to limit your emotions. You have to shrink your emotion, limit your emotions. And now I can begin to communicate, to convey what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing. So the key elemental aspect of Ugvuraschi Daberu, to be able to reveal the attribute of kingdom, it only comes through the attribute of Gevura, of strength. Hashem had to limit Himself. He has to limit Himself to enable to reveal the attribute of speech, of communication. People mistakenly think that creativity is self-expression. That's the ultimate the height of creativity is to express yourself. But the reality is the ultimate expression of creativity is contracting yourself, removing yourself, absenting yourself. It takes a lot more, it's a lot more revealing of your character. To be silent, to be quiet is a lot more revealing than when you reveal yourself. It's a lot more revealing about yourself. It takes a lot more out of a person to contain yourself, to control yourself, to limit yourself. What not to say than what you do say. Not speaking and not revealing yourself and not expressing yourself. There's a lot more personality, a lot more character, a lot more depth. A person has to be a lot more colorful and a lot more depth of personality in the silence. The silence speaks volumes. So the Gevura of Hashem concealing himself, holding himself back in order to reveal his speech, his kingdom, in order to give us the space, to create that space, to give us the room to exist. That's the ultimate, that's what leads to Malchus, that's royalty. That's what leads to dignity and to royalty. But then he continues in the next verse, Leidiel of Ne'adam Gevura. So we look at Gevura as something, deprivation, contraction, concealment, hiding. But the truth is, in the essence, Gevura literally means in Hebrew intensity, strength. Because Gevura actually means, it's very powerful. It's a powerful flow of energy, of life. Just like the blood pulsates in the body. It's pulsating. Anything that's alive comes from Gevura. Gevura is vitality. It's life. It's pulsating with life. It's so alive. The reason why Gevura has to be, that's the reason why Gevura has to be contained. Because it's so powerful, if you don't contain the energy, it can burst. It can destroy you. It can turn into something destructive. Because essentially, Gevura is powerful. That's why rain is called Gevura. Why is rain called Gevura? Because rain itself represents, it's a pouring down of energy, of life, of water, of life. But if Hashem did not break it down into drops, it would just come down as one sheet of rain, which would create a flood. It would just destroy everything in its path. So Hashem has to break it down into drops, separate each drop from the other. So it's an act of Gevura. Hashem is limiting. Each drop is separate, apart, so he's limiting it. But the reality is, the essence is, it's the coming down of this abundance of rain, of a flow of abundance. So Gevura, in essence, is about a tremendous flow of energy, of strength, of blessings. But this will be revealed when Mashiach will come. When Mashiach will come, they will speak. The ideal of Ne'adam Gevura, they will let know that the truth of Hashem's Gevura, it's not about limiting, constricting, confining. It's really about Hashem's intense desire to give us intense blessings and powerful blessings, and there should be a flow of blessings without any limit. Okay, and last verse we'll focus on today, and this is the most important verse of this psalm, which is the most important psalm in a sense of the whole Tehillim. And that's why you have to say it 3 times a day. It says whoever says it 3 times a day is guaranteed a share in the world to come. This one single verse with the pay, you see that little box on page 32, the comment on the side, the little note. So it's parallel to the note. It says, you open your hands, you satisfy the desire of every living thing. And this single verse, this one verse, must be said with intent. If you just recite it mechanically and by rote without intent, you have to go back and say it again. And even though, what's the point of going back and saying it again? We're probably likely to go back and say it again the second time without intent. But since it's only one verse, you don't have to go back and repeat the whole ending of this psalm. Just this one verse. Because so to say one verse, we can control ourselves and manage to make sure to recite this one verse with intent. You know, you're going to sing it until you get it right. So you're going to say it until you get it right. What's so special about this verse? So on a simple level, we're thanking Hashem for providing. And this is the greatest wonder of all. That not only Hashem creates us, but He sustains us. Everything that exists needs to be nourished and needs to be nurtured. and has its own unique way, what it needs in order to survive and to live and to flourish and to thrive. And Hashem is busy. Hashem takes care of the needs of every single creature of existence, from the amoeba on up, to make sure that everything has the nourishment that they need, which is astonishing. But on a deeper level, we say Hashem opens his arms. What do you mean, open your arms? What are Hashem's arms? In the plural. Your arms, not arms. Just like the purpose of the arms is to give to someone else. When you're giving, you're providing, you give with your arms. So we talk about Hashem's arms, we talk about the part of Hashem, so to speak, that gives. So just like, for example, the analogy, a teacher wants to teach his students. He wants to give to his students. He's not giving them money, he's giving them knowledge, information, knowledge, teachings. So there are two steps. There are two arms, so to speak. There's two steps in his giving to his students. Step number one, he has to formulate the idea that he wants to teach to his students. He has to formulate within his own mind the idea, what does he want to convey? What does he want to communicate? What's the idea that he wants to give over, transmit to his students? That's only step number one. But this step is too abstract for the students. They'll never understand. The teacher has an idea, now he knows what he wants to teach and what he wants to convey. But if he would just convey it raw, the way he understands it, the students, it's way beyond, it's way over the head of the student. So now the second step is he has to get into the mindset of the students, and now he has to figure out, to find the language in their world to be able to communicate and to convey this idea in their world. And that's what we say, these are the two steps, so to speak, when we speak of the divine. So just like when you form an idea, that's like the beginning of consciousness. Wisdom, understanding, knowledge, you form an idea in your mind. So the beginning of everything that exists in this world starts with the divine consciousness, which is the Chachma, the level of Chachma, the divine supernal wisdom. That's where everything originates. Everything originates in Chachma. That's why a Chachma is represented by oil. Oil is found in anything. Today you find oil in everything. Shale, they take stone and they crush it and they come up with oil. Because Chachma is in everything. Everything starts with Chachma. Chachma is the beginning of consciousness. That's the beginning of... But then you have the lowest level. The lowest level is Malchus, where you can actually convey and give it over to the receiver on their level, that you're able to transmit it to them. Now, we say Hashem, we praise Hashem, that Hashem opens his arms. Why does Hashem have to open his arms? Because although everything is already decreed on Rosh Hashanah, everything is decided on Rosh Hashanah, you don't earn 1 penny more than was decreed on Rosh Hashanah. And of course that depends on the quality of those 48 hours, how you davened and how you lived and how you were on Rosh Hashanah. So the question is, if everything is already decreed on Rosh Hashanah, why do you have to daven every day for your livelihood? It's already been decreed. Because although at the source everything has already been allotted and everything has been set aside, but sometimes it remains in the bank account. It doesn't reach your pocket. Every day you have to write a withdrawal slip. You have to be able to take the money out of the bank. And sometimes things get stuck. The bank is closed, or you didn't show up, or you forgot how to write, or you forgot how to ask. Whatever. There's always a story. The money is there, but it's not reaching me. It's not helping me. I'm starving. So every day you have to ask to make sure that the money that was allotted for Rosh Hashanah, it should be able to actually reach my pocket. I should be able to benefit and enjoy it. But then there is another thing. The Zohar says, Beseach es Yodecha. Yodecha, he says, don't read it Yodecha, but read Yudecha. Yud. Hashem opens his Yuds, his two Yuds. Seems like a very cryptic statement. What do you mean Hashem opens his Yuds and two Yuds? What's he referring to? So he's referring to the two names of Hashem. Hashem's essential name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, starts with a Yud, and the last name of Hashem, Adonai, ends with a Yud. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and the Yud represents Chachma, wisdom, the beginning of the divine consciousness, so to speak, and then the last Yud, Adonai, represents Malchus, and the Yud, the end, which connects with the receiver, all the way at the end, at the bottom. What's the difference between the level of Chachma and the level of Adonai, the two Yuds? The level of Chachma, godliness is transparent, godliness is revealed, godliness is open. It's right in front of you. The level of Malchus, godliness is remote, godliness is hidden, is concealed. It's not revealed. It's beyond me. And the Yud, both Yuds represents, it's a dat. It represents humility, egolessness. So there are two levels of egolessness. There's the level of the Yud, the first Yud, the level of Chachma, which is king in a certain way. And then you have the level all the way on the bottom. There's Yud, there's 10 attributes. So you have the beginning of the attributes, the Yud, from the top down. That's the Yud of Yud Kei Vav Kei. And then you have the second Yud, which is from the bottom up, the beginning of the 10 attributes from the bottom up, which is Malchus. The difference is that the humility of wisdom that comes from the top is like the humility of someone who studied, knows the subject matter in depth, and comes to the realization that I don't understand. Because as much as I understand, and I learned and I've read everything that there is to know on this subject matter is so deep and it's so infinite that it's beyond my comprehension. So this is a humility that comes from the highest level. It's a humility that you could only acquire after much learning and much studying, after being totally immersed and absorbed in the subject matter, and then you come to the ultimate knowledge that I don't know. But then there's a person who's ignorant and says, I don't know. It's a big difference between the Nobel Prize winner who says, I don't know, and the person who never learned and never studied says, I don't know. So they're both Yud, they're both Bittul. This one says, I don't know, I'm humble, I don't understand, it's so beyond me. But the one, then you have, it's like the poor person who doesn't know. Then you have the rich person who realizes that there's so much that's beyond me. So the person who's rich in knowledge and realizes, it's Yud, I don't know anything. What do I know? It's nothing. There's so much depth, there's so much infinite depth that I don't know, maybe I'll never know. So he's humbled. He's humbled by all of his knowledge. Moshe was the most humble person that lived. He was the one who received the Torah. He was the richest in knowledge. And yet he was completely humbled because he realized that there's so much more to know. Whatever I know is nothing. It's not even like a drop in the ocean in comparison to Hashem, who's so infinite, who's so beyond. King David, however, he was the king. He represents the Jewish people. It's like the poor person who's humble. He says, I don't know. Hashem is so beyond me. Hashem is so beyond that he's also brokenhearted. And that's why these are the two hands. In order to provide, in order to be a provider, in order to be a giver, the key ingredient, the key quality is humility. To be a conduit for Hashem's flow, for Hashem's blessings, you have to have that Yud. You have to be humble. If you're humble, then you are the conduit for Hashem's blessings. There's no static, there's no interference. And the chassid who's truly humble, he has the power. Not only does he have the power to open up Hashem's hands, that whatever has been allotted to us on Rosh Hashanah, there shouldn't be any blockages, there shouldn't be any interference. He can open up all the blockages and bless and make sure that the blessings flow and reach us. But he even has the power to create a new reality, a new blessing, something that was not decided on Rosh Hashanah, something totally new, like we discussed earlier. The Chasidim, those who are humble, have the power, like Moshe and David have the power to draw down something new, a blessing from the essence of Hashem, to create something new entirely. So you can receive something that's even beyond, even something that's not allotted to you. That wasn't allotted to you in Rosh Hashanah. As there were stories of, they were able to give blessings and give long life to people. When they were born, they were not allotted to live so long. It wasn't in the cards. It wasn't in the universe that Hashem created. But the tzaddik has the power to give a blessing and to create something new. A person was not meant to be rich, and the tzaddik has the power to give that blessing. That even though it's not in the store, it's not there, it's not in the bank account, there's nothing there. But he has the power to bring that blessing, to open Hashem's hands, and that's what we praise Hashem. You open your yuds, and you open your yuds that not only that we should draw it down from the level of the supernal wisdom into the level of royalty, into the lowest yud, and to make sure whatever is allotted to us should flow without any blockages. But we also have the power, we ask Hashem, we praise Hashem for also opening up His yuds and giving us and providing us and giving us new things that are not even in the till, they're not even in the storage for us, but it's completely new blessings for life, for health, for success. So again, this is just a little taste. Hopefully the idea of studying the Siddur is that we become lifelong students of the Siddur, just to whet the appetite, to realize that we should study Siddur for the rest of our lives. We shouldn't just pray, learn it and understand it and delve deeper. And of course we can probably spend a half a year just on this psalm, but we'll conclude Ashrei. You can't exhaust it. It can't be exhaustive. It's like an ocean. But just to give an insight to how much depth there is in every word and every sentence of these prayers. And hopefully now that we have a little understanding of the prayer, when we say Ashrei 3 times a day, we can say it with a little more intent, a little more concentration, a little more heartfelt. And Hashem will answer our prayer and our praises, and we will be showered with Hashem's blessings.